Sintra looks like one of the most magical places in Portugal, but visiting it the wrong way can turn your day into a rushed, crowded, and surprisingly expensive experience. We only had 4 hours here, so we tried to see as much as possible with a private tuk-tuk tour, skipped some famous places, and still spent more than we expected. In this video, I'll show you exactly what we saw, what it cost, what I regret, and how I would plan a Sintra day trip from Lisbon differently next time. Our 4th day in Portugal and our 2nd day in Lisbon started with breakfast at the hotel before we drove towards Sintra. The journey took around 30 minutes by car, which made this feel like one of the easiest day trips from Lisbon. If you are wondering how to get to Sintra, driving is one option, but the train from Lisbon is usually the easiest budget choice, with a round trip around €5. You can also join organized tours from Lisbon, usually ranging from around €30 to €120, depending on the route, guide, transport, and included entrance tickets. Once you arrive, Sintra's hop-on, hop-off buses can also help, with full-day tickets around €15, especially because many famous places are uphill. When we arrived in the center of Sintra, we found a parking spot and paid €1.5. As soon as we started walking, the first thing we noticed was the calm, elegant, and slower atmosphere. Sintra didn't feel like Lisbon at all, because it had green hills, scenic houses, quiet streets, and that royal escape feeling. Before arriving, we had booked a 1-hour private tuk-tuk tour through getyourguide.com for €50 per person. Since we only had around 4 hours, this felt like a fast way to see more, without spending too much time walking uphill. When the tuk-tuk driver arrived, we started from the center and slowly moved toward the upper parts of Sintra. Along the way, we passed colorful buildings, narrow roads, historic walls, and huge gated areas that looked like entrances of old mansions or private estates. The tuk-tuk was useful for a short visit, but at €50 per person for 1 hour, it was convenient rather than cheap. If you are on a tighter budget, the train from Lisbon plus the Sintra hop-on hop-off bus makes much more sense. But if you have limited time, don't want to climb too much, and want a quick overview, a private tuk-tuk can be a practical choice. Our first short stop was Fonte da Sabuga, which gave us our first real view toward the upper historic parts of Sintra. After Fonte da Sabuga, we drove a very short distance and stopped briefly in front of Quinta da Regaleira. This is one of the most famous places in Sintra, especially because of its mysterious gardens, symbolic architecture, and the famous spiral staircase inside the initiation well. We didn't go inside because we didn't have tickets in advance, and honestly, this became one of my biggest regrets from the day. The entrance can be around €20 per person, and if you enjoy photography, history, gardens, or mysterious places, I would seriously consider booking Quinta da Regaleira in advance. From Quinta da Regaleira, we continued a little further and visited the areas around Palácio e Parque Biester and Chalet Relogio. These places added another layer to the luxurious and historic feeling of Sintra, with romantic architecture, old estates, colorful details, and buildings that looked like they belonged in a period film. Our next stop was a viewpoint where we could see Castelo dos Mouros from a distance. This is also known as the Moorish castle, and if you search for Sintra Castle or Moorish Castle, this is the dramatic fortress you usually see on the hills. This was also when I started to realize that Sintra is beautiful, but it is spread out, hilly, and full of places that take more time than expected. A little further ahead, we stopped around Parque da Pena, where we could see Palácio Nacional da Pena from a distance and walk a little around the park area. This is probably the most iconic image of Sintra, with its colorful palace, hilltop location, and fairy tale architecture. Inside the park area, we also saw small duck houses designed like miniature castles, which was a charming and unexpected detail. After that, we reached the entrance gate of Palácio Nacional da Pena. Because we didn't buy tickets in advance and were short on time, we didn't go inside. But if I planned this day again, I would definitely try to visit the interior of Pena Palace. The entrance can be around 20 euros per person, and for many first-time visitors, this is the main reason for visiting Sintra. If Pena Palace is your priority, book your ticket in advance, arrive early, and don't plan your schedule too tightly. When the Tuk-Tuk tour was ending, we asked the driver to leave us in the upper historic center of Sintra. On the way, we passed local sales stands and then continued walking toward the main center. This part of Sintra felt much livelier and more touristy. The town is built in layers across the slopes, so every street, corner, and viewpoint changes as you walk. One of the first buildings that caught our attention was the News Museum. From there, we continued between colorful and aesthetic buildings filled with souvenir shops, restaurants, cafes, and tourists. This is where the fairy tale atmosphere meets the real tourist reality, because Sintra is beautiful, but it is not an empty hidden gem. Without a doubt, the most striking building in the center was Palácio Nacional de Sintra, also known as Sintra National Palace. This building dominates the old town with its white exterior and distinctive architecture. Around this area, everywhere we turned offered a new photographic perspective. On one side, there was a bright blue restaurant, and right next to it there was a yellow building with a red telephone booth in front. Between the colorful buildings, Torre do Relógio stood out as another beautiful example of the town's architectural variety. The famous landmarks are important, but the smaller streets are what made Sintra feel alive to me. As we continued through the side streets, we saw restaurants, some closed places, and small boutique-style shops. Igreja de São Martinho seemed almost hidden between the buildings at first, but as we got closer, it slowly revealed itself. That is one of the things I liked most about walking in Sintra. If you only rush from attraction to attraction, you can easily miss these small moments. As we returned to the more active streets, the tourist energy became much more obvious. There were shops full of customers, taxis waiting on the roadside, people taking photos, and visitors moving through the narrow streets. The atmosphere was lively but also crowded, so if you come during peak season or in the middle of the day, expect lines, traffic, and busy viewpoints. This is where an honest Sintra review has to be realistic. Sintra is absolutely worth visiting, but it is much better when you arrive early, book tickets in advance, and choose your priorities. After walking around for a while, we stopped to rest in one of the livelier parts of the center. For lunch, we paid around 25 euros per person and had Portuguese-style roasted chicken, followed by pastéis de nata. It wasn't the cheapest lunch, but it was convenient and enjoyable after exploring the town. After lunch, we continued exploring the narrow streets of Sintra, where souvenir products were lined up outside shops. Tourist crowds filled some areas, and a few viewpoints even had people waiting in line for photos. When we walked back down, we came across a group performing live street music, with tourists gathered around and enjoying the moment. After one final walk, we returned to the place where our car was parked, and our almost 4-hour Sintra visit came to an end. During this short visit, we explored the center, took a private tuk-tuk tour, saw Quinta da Regaleira from outside, passed Palácio e Parque Biester and Chalet Relogio, viewed Castelo dos Mouros, stopped around Parque da Pena, saw Palácio Nacional da Pena, walked through the historic center, saw Palácio Nacional de Sintra, Torre do Relógio, the Sintra Tourism Building, Igreja de São Martinho, shops, cafes, restaurants, and colorful streets. But I left with one very clear feeling. 4 hours is enough to get a taste of Sintra, but not enough to fully experience it. If you don't want to rush, staying one night in Sintra can be a great idea. Standard accommodation options can start around 100 to 200 euros per night, while more luxurious stays can go up to around 1000 euros per night. Most people visit Sintra as a day trip from Lisbon, and that works well if you plan carefully. But if you want to see the town early in the morning or later in the evening, after many day trippers have left, staying overnight could give you a very different experience. Now let's quickly summarize the real costs from our Sintra visit. Parking in the center cost 1.5 euros. The private 1-hour tuk-tuk tour cost 50 euros per person. We did not enter Quinta da Regaleira, but entrance can be around 20 euros per person. We also did not enter Palácio Nacional da Pena, but entrance can also be around 20 euros per person. Lunch in the center costs around 25 euros per person. For a cheaper version, you could take the train from Lisbon for around 5 euros return, use the hop-on hop-off bus for around 15 euros, choose one major paid attraction, and eat a simpler lunch. With that approach, Sintra can still be affordable, but if you add private transport, multiple tickets, and restaurants in the tourist center, the day can become expensive very quickly. So, is Sintra worth visiting? For me, yes, absolutely. I think Sintra is one of the must-visit places in Portugal, especially if it is your first time in Lisbon. It gives you a completely different side of the country, with palaces, hills, old streets, royal architecture, and a slower atmosphere. But I would not recommend visiting Sintra without a plan. The biggest mistakes are arriving too late, not booking tickets, underestimating the hills, and trying to see too much in one short visit. If you only have around 4 hours like we did, focus on the historic center and one major attraction, or use a tuk-tuk for a quick overview. If you have a full day, I would book Pena Palace and Quinta da Regaleira in advance. Arrive early, use the local bus or tuk-tuk only when needed, and leave the old town for the afternoon. If you want a more complete route, you can also add the Moorish castle and spend more time around the historic center. If you want the best experience, staying one night may be even better. This wasn't just another checklist-style Portugal travel guide for me. It felt like a short fairy tale escape from Lisbon, with beautiful views, real crowds, some expensive choices, and a few things I would plan differently next time. If you enjoy Honest Portugal travel vlog style videos, this is one of those places where the reality is still beautiful, even if it is busier and more touristic than you might expect. So if you are planning Portugal travel, wondering what to do in Portugal, or looking for the best things to do in Sintra, I would definitely keep Sintra high on your list. That was my real 4-hour experience visiting Sintra from Lisbon, including what we saw, what we skipped, what we spent, and what I would do differently next time. If you are planning a trip to Portugal, make sure to check out my other videos from this Portugal series, including Lisbon, Porto, Aveiro, Cascais, Faro, Portimão, and the Algarve coast. If this video helped you plan your own Sintra trip, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who is planning to visit Portugal soon.